I had the chance to head over to Overclockers UK to try out their racing VR sim. Now I'm going to give you a bit of sort of footage of obviously me playing on it and the footage of the track and stuff, but just to give you an idea of what it's actually like to play with a VR headset in a racing simulator. For me, it's very different, and I'm kind of going to go through it as the sort of footage rolls on, but yeah, it's just going to be a nice short, effectively a bonus weekend video for you, so that you can get an idea of what VR racing is all about. So this is the racing chair. They were using a Thrustmaster wheel with a full 6-speed shifter, as well as the 3-pedal assembly, so clutch, brake and accelerator, which was actually really awesome, although they put it in flappy paddle mode, so you're obviously using the paddles just behind the steering wheel, as with the headset on you actually can't see where your hand goes when you go to shift, so it's a little bit difficult unless you do like multiple, like several hour sessions in it to work out, just get used to putting your hand down on the gear stick. So they were putting it in flappy paddle mode, which is a little bit easier to do, as you didn't have to touch the clutch pedal at all, which was quite nice. But in terms of the headset, they're using a Vive Pre, just with the headset itself and the trackers still up in the same place where they do room scale, so this was very much just kind of tucked in the corner, and it was actually really awesome. It tracked fairly well. There was a little bit of an issue with one of the trackers not being quite squared on, but once we fixed that, it tracked pretty well from side to side. It was pretty fine, and they were gaming on a GTX 1080, so obviously FPS really wasn't an issue while playing Project Cars. There was actually a few issues with some of the settings. I think it's if you have a certain anti-aliasing setting on with the headset, it doesn't, the game lags like hell and runs at something like 30 FPS, when obviously you want to run it at about 90, so that was an interesting experience. But yeah, overall it was a lot of fun to play with. One of the best things was being able to look through a corner, so if you were, say, doing a really tight right-hander, you could look to your right-hand side so that you can see where you're going to go, as opposed to the usual sort of thing of just basically looking straight forward or being in a sort of third-person view so that you can just see the entire car. So it was very nice. It made things a lot easier, I found personally, being able to, as I said, look through a corner and that sort of thing. And it was a lot of fun. The headset, especially with the Vive, was a little bit heavy on the face. Although, as you can see here, possibly just due to how I had it sort of strapped on. But overall, as I said, it was very immersive, it was very fun. I do have a couple of thoughts just about sort of racing sims in general versus driving sort of real cars, so here's that sort of stuff. For me, a really interesting thing that I was thinking about while I was playing with the VR racing sim versus just driving real cars is that, to me anyway, the experience is still very different. I don't know whether it's just because of the realistic aspect of that. If I, when I was driving the Aston Martin DBS and Ferrari 360 on track, if you push the accelerator too fast and hard, you'll wheel spin it, or the back end will come out, or you could actually crash and die type thing, versus in a VR racing sim or in any sort of racing sim, you still, if you run off or hit a wall or something, it's still not the end of the world. You're not going to die from crashing. So I think possibly that's an aspect. I even tried a full motion racing sim at the Insomnia Gaming Festival, and even though you could still feel a little bit of sort of G-force because the seat would tilt you back as you're accelerating, tilt you forward as you're braking. And obviously if you went over gravel or you went over the rumble strips at the side of the track, you would still feel that. The feedback that you get still isn't quite the same. I think one of the real issues I have with racing sims is actually changing gear for me. I think when I'm driving, my front wheel drive 130 horsepower Volvo, changing gear is very natural. You can not only hear the tone, but you can feel it through the wheel, the sort of vibrations there. And it's just kind of instinctive that, I need to go first, second, third, all that sort of stuff. And even changing down, despite my brake and foot accelerator being really far apart, if you really put your foot across, you can still heel-toe downshift. So that's fun. But for me, when you're actually driving in a VR or computer sim, the experience is still very different. It's something that again, maybe it's just because you don't necessarily have the reactions that you possibly do, but also for me it feels very reactive as opposed to proactive, because when you're driving, if you're heading into a corner, you can feel when you're stamping on the brake pedal, you can feel how well it's actually braking, you can feel if you're starting to lose grip, you can feel if you're going too fast, you can feel the understeer starting to kick in or oversteer, and you can easily correct that quite quickly. But with a VR or with the racing sim in general, it feels a lot more reactive, so it feels like you have to wait for the back end to come out to then start correcting, as opposed to sort of feeling it and knowing that that's going to happen. So for me, I think there's still a bit of a way to go before this is completely passable, as you know, you never notice that you were driving a racing sim versus a real car type thing, but at the same time it still was a lot of fun to play with. The overall experience was fantastic, and I really, once you do the first few laps and get used to it, I was very immersed in the experience. The HTC Vive was obviously fantastic. It was a little bit of a tracking issue. I think that was just because one of the sensors was slightly off, one of the lighthouses rather, but overall it was still, there was a little bit of chop to it when you moved your head and a little bit of ghosting occasionally, but overall it was still a very immersive experience. You can slightly see the pixels if you are really kind of looking at it. The resolution still could do with a bit of an upgrade there in that respect, but regardless, as I said, it still was a very immersive experience, and it was a lot of fun to play with. So yeah, big thanks to Overclockers UK. So that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe and like and all that sort of good stuff. Also follow us on Facebook and Twitter for updates on all the videos and all that sort of stuff. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it informative at the very least. And yeah, I guess that's kind of it. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video.